I am Christine Moore. I am a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I wanted to first start off by just telling you some of my history. I was born 6 months, at 6 months, so I was born 3 months early, weighing in at 2.5 pounds, and so that would lead me to have all sorts of health problems growing up, and I started having joint pain at the age of 11. I've had 3 neck surgeries, eye issues. I was born blind in my left eye from birth and very bad vision in my right eye. And I had to have a hysterectomy a little over a year ago due to endometriosis, all sorts of things. I've got thyroid, autoimmune condition, psoriasis, a bunch of stuff. And so growing up, my parents never really associated, the diet with the health problems that I was having. So as I became older, continued with health problems, my eyesight kept getting worse. At the age of 21, married Jimmy, and you may know Jimmy Moore from Living La Vida Low Carb, and he's written several books on the ketogenic diet, fasting, and things like that. So he lost a bunch of weight in 2004, and I watched him do his thing, and I never really got into it, yet I was still eating my M&Ms and Skittles and drinking regular regular Dr. Pepper, and so finally went to the doctor, and my triglycerides were at 300, and he said, "You know what to do about that," so started eating low carb. And so I have an associate's degree in elementary education, but there was something more that I wanted to do, and having watched Jimmy for so long do what he did, the opportunity came to go through the nutritional therapy practitioner program, and so I did that, learned a bunch of stuff, and the reason why I wanted to do that is because I wanted to figure out me. I wanted to figure there was still stuff that I, was dealing with, and so I did that. I went through the program, learned so much great information that I wanted to get out to the public that's really not talked about a lot in the keto or any realm. So if you're wondering kind of what a nutritional therapy practitioner does, we look at the client's diet, we look at medical history and things like that, and we kind of make recommendations to change lifestyle things, change their diet up a little bit, make recommendations on getting better sleep, that sort of thing. One of the things that practitioners do that the consultants don't do is called the functional evaluation. Jimmy, I want you to come up here for a second.
This is not fun.
So the functional exam involves doing palpations on different parts of the body, and that kind of gives me an idea of where you may be deficient. So, so one of these is the thenar pad for the pancreas. So give me your right hand. So right here, hold your hand up there. So right in
Tickled me.
right in the middle there is the palpation for the pancreas. And so I'm going to press on this.
Yeah.
And so if it's tender, then it's an indication to me that he needs pancreatic support.
Right.
So, okay, I'm not going to do any more on you. I tried to do the FE on him, and it was just impossible. He was 10s all the way across. So, but what I wanted to mention to you is that Jimmy and I both have a book coming out. Actually, the date on here is wrong because we since found out that the release date's going to be a little bit delayed. It's going to be actually November 6th. And so a lot of these concepts that I am talking about today are going to be in this book, except much more expanded. So it's available to pre-order on Amazon now. And then Jimmy and I do the Nutritional Pearls podcast together, where we cover these pearls that I learned going through the nutritional therapy practitioner program. So the first thing that's really not talked about a lot is stomach acid, the importance of stomach acid. So stomach acid has several functions. It disinfects the stomach, so your stomach is the first line of defense as far as when you ingest food. There can be harmful microbes in there, so the HCl, or the hydrochloric acid, kind of disinfects the stomach. And then it also helps digest proteins, so you need adequate hydrochloric acid to digest protein, and most people today are not producing enough stomach acid. So I'll get into here in a minute why that is, but there are several things that can happen as a result of not producing enough stomach acid. So the first thing is that obviously proteins are not going to be digested properly, and this is personally why I feel like a higher protein diet is not optimal for most people, because most people aren't producing enough stomach acid. So you need protein to digest protein. So here's how it works. You eat the protein, those are amino acids, those form peptides. The peptides promote gastrin production. The gastrin promotes the hydrochloric acid production, and the hydrochloric acid is what produces or helps promote pepsin. Pepsin is what digests proteins. So if you're not producing enough stomach acid, you're not going to be producing enough pepsin to digest those proteins. So if you're going to have a higher protein diet, you need to make sure that you're producing enough stomach acid to be able to take care of digesting those proteins, because these undigested proteins are going to go further down in the digestive system and cause irritation, leads to autoimmune conditions because of leaky gut, that sort of thing. So in my opinion, that's why not everybody should be doing a high protein diet unless they're absolutely sure they're producing enough stomach acid. So another thing, harmful microbes can enter into the body. Like I said, the hydrochloric acid disinfects the stomach. So people that have episodes of food poisoning, maybe it's because they actually were not producing enough stomach acid. Also, a development of gastroesophageal, reflux disease. So most people, when they have heartburn, I watch my parents go through this. They have heartburn, they go to the doctor and say, hey, look, I've got heartburn. What does the doctor do? They prescribe the antacids. Well, actually, the antacids are making things worse, because in reality, people aren't producing enough stomach acid. That results in the heartburn. So what happens is that the pH of the stomach is not correct, and so the food does not empty into the duodenum like it should. So it just sits there, and there are certain factors that can affect when this food sits in the stomach, it can come back up. And so if you're pregnant, smoking, certain foods, if the food comes back up, even though the pH of the stomach is not correct, it's still too acidic for the esophagus, and that's why it burns. So it's not that you're producing too much stomach acid. More than likely than not, you're not producing enough. So every time I hear someone being prescribed those proton pump inhibitors, I just get aggravated. Another thing is the pyloric sphincter will not allow the food to go into the duodenum. So the stomach pH has to be between 1.5 and 3. And if it's not, the food just sits in there and it doesn't pass on to the rest of the digestive system. The proteins putrefy, the fats go rancid, and the carbohydrates ferment. And again, this causes irritation down the digestive tract, which can lead to, like I said, leaky gut and other problems. So there are three primary things that are needed for stomach acid production. So you need zinc, you need B6, and you need gastrin. So people that are deficient in B6 and zinc are most likely deficient in stomach acid. I want to show you real quick a point that we learned. You can do this on yourself, but it's a lot of times better results when you have somebody else pressing on you when you're laying down. So, but I'll show it to you anyway. So the HCl point for determining if you're deficient in hydrochloric acid, you go where the rib cage meets the right here, and the xiphoid process, you go down 1 inch, and then against the rib cage on the left, and you press against that point, and if you're tender, that tells me that you are probably deficient in the hydrochloric acid. And so what I would do, I would first make sure that your stomach is okay, and then probably put you on HCl supplementation. You need to make sure that your stomach doesn't have ulcers or anything, because I made the mistake. I'm still dealing with tiny little ulcers in my stomach. I started taking the hydrochloric acid, and my stomach hurt for 4 days. So this is why taking hydrochloric acid, you really need to do that in conjunction with seeing a healthcare professional. That way they can help you with that, because even I messed up with that. The second thing that I want to talk about is gut health, and this is another big thing that's not talked about a lot. We don't realize that our microbial cells outnumber our human cells 10 to 1. So that means that's equal to about 100 trillion microbes living in us, which weighs about 2 to 4 pounds. So this is a very important aspect of our health that's just now being talked about a lot. And hopefully it will get more mainstream. So beneficial microbes protect the intestinal wall. They help produce vitamins K2, B1, B2, and B12. They help digest and absorb nutrients. They fight harmful microbes, and they improve bowel transit time. So gotta tell you, I'll park here and tell you a little story about my dad. You know you're comfortable with your dad when you can have this conversation. So he called me up. He had been struggling with bowel movements for a while, and he called me up and said, "Does this stuff that you put me on," I put him on a probiotic. He said, "Does this stuff, is this supposed to make you poop more often?" And I go, "Well, what do you mean? Are you having diarrhea or anything like that?" And he goes, "No, I'm just having a bowel movement every day." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" He said, "Well, I was going only one bowel movement maybe every 3 days." I'm like, "Are you serious?" And so I said, "Yes, Dad, that's normal. You need to have a bowel movement every day." So he's, for the first time in a long time, he's like, "Okay, wow, this is normal." He didn't know that was normal. So another thing that the microbes do is they help normalize mental health. You may not realize that 90% of the serotonin that's produced in your body is produced in the gut. So if you have depression or any type of mental struggles, then I would look at your gut health and see what's going on there. Things that can permanently impact the composition of our microbiome: stress. So stress pulls away blood flow from the gut and puts it towards the heart, the muscles, and the lungs for that fight or flight response. And so that can distort and disrupt the gut microbiome. And the same thing with a high carbohydrate diet. First of all, it feeds the bad bacteria and other microbes, and so they flourish and outnumber the good. And then the same thing, because a high carbohydrate diet puts stress on the body, the same thing happens. The pancreas is having to deal with lowering blood sugar, and so blood flow is taken away from the gut, and the same thing basically happens. So contraceptives, you may not be aware of this, but there are hormone receptors throughout the body, even in the gut. And these, when you take contraceptives, the added hormones can disrupt the gut flora that way. Overuse of antibiotics is like kind of a well duh. You know, it not only kills the bad, but it also kills the good. And so I wish I had learned this. The doctor had me on a round of powerful antibiotics for 3 months straight because I had some infection that just wasn't going away. And he didn't tell me to supplement with yogurt or anything with probiotics in it. And so I know I did damage to my gut health that way. And just a fun little note, we've long thought that the appendix is kind of a useless organ now, but research is showing that it's actually a safe house for these good microbiome to repopulate. So if you go on a round of antibiotics and you have your appendix still, you're more likely to be able to replenish those good gut microbiome in a timely manner. My sister doesn't have her appendix anymore, and she's so sick so often, and it's because she can't replenish those good gut microbiome. The next thing that's a biggie that I've learned a lot about is hydration. So water makes up nearly 2/3 of our body, 60%, and it's the most common nutritional deficiency in America. And yes, water is a nutrient. We don't think about that, but it's so important because it impacts so many bodily functions. And it's really easy to figure out what your daily intake of water should be. So you take your weight, divide that by 2, and that's your number of ounces you should drink in water, but not to exceed 1 gallon. And diuretics play a part in here too. So diuretics, if you drink an 8-ounce Coke or whatever, Diet Coke or whatever, the diuretic effect, it will pull out 8 ounces of water or more from your body. So if you're drinking a diuretic, you need to add a little bit more water to kind of compensate for that. But again, not to exceed 1 gallon, because if you drink too much water, that can actually deplete your electrolytes, and then you could have problems there. The first sign of dehydration that you might notice, think about, some of these things that are listed here: fatigue, anxiety, irritability, depression, cravings, cramps, and headaches. So I tend to go out in the garden, and I am notorious for not taking a bottle of water out there. And I will start to get fatigued. I will start getting irritable. Jimmy will have to come out there and bring me a bottle of water and drink it. See, I know I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I'm still, struggling with getting enough water. It's just something we get so busy and we don't drink water. So the later signs, they tend to be heartburn. I experience this getting out in the garden if I don't drink. So heartburn, joint pain, back pain, migraines, fibromyalgia, constipation, and colitis. So if you're struggling with any of these things, think back of how's my water intake been for that day. So if the water content of your body drops a mere 2%, then this can actually lead to the development of fatigue. So, and if it drops by 10%, you have other health issues that can be kind of serious. So digestive disorders, cardiovascular concerns, immune problems, and musculoskeletal issues. Then if it drops more than 10%, you could die. It's that serious. So getting enough water every day is so important. The next thing, we probably know a good amount about our dietary fats because we eat a high-fat diet. But there are several things in here that you may not be aware of, and fats have several benefits in the body. So it's a long-lasting source of energy and fuel for the body. It makes healthy cell membranes because our cell membranes are made of fat. And so if we're not eating fat, then we're not going to have healthy cells. The fat helps us absorb the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. So if we're eating a low-fat diet, we're not going to be able to absorb those fat-soluble vitamins. They're not going to do us any good. Fat increases satiety. You probably are aware that, you can eat and then go hours and hours and hours without eating. We did that yesterday. We had breakfast really early, and we didn't eat till about 9 o'clock at night, or later, which is a little bit too late for my liking, but that's the way the schedule worked. So anyway, and fats help manage inflammation. So there are 3 types of prostaglandins, and you have your, if I can remember this right, so your PG1s come from omega-6s. Your PG1s, your prostaglandin 1s, are anti-inflammatory in nature. You have your PG2s, prostaglandin 2s, which come from saturated fats, and then those are inflammatory in nature, but I'll explain this in a minute. We still need those. And then you have your prostaglandin 3s, which come from your omega-3s. This is why we need a healthy mix of all these types of fats. So the body needs to inflame before it can heal. So an example of this would be the immune system. When you have an injury or sickness or something, the body actually inflames to clear the pathway for the white blood cells to get where they need to go in a timely manner. And so this is why you need the saturated fat as well. And we also need, we've long been taught, those of us in the low-carb community, we have often said, and I'm guilty of this, to stay away from your omega-6s because they're bad. Well, they're not bad in that it's the source of the omega-6. It's the processing of the omega-6 that's the problem. So you see these oils on store shelves that are in clear bottles. They've been exposed to heat in the processing, and they're exposed to the light from the grocery store. All of this makes these oils highly unstable, so they're bad. But if you find good sources of these oils that are in dark bottles that have been cold pressed and organic, it'll say it on the label. You have to read the label, because if it's not on the label, then most likely it's not cold pressed and organic. These oils can be a safe alternative, and especially for those that have egg allergies or nut allergies, that have those 2 things have omega-6s in them. For those people that have sensitivities or allergies to those things, these oils can be a really good source of these fats. So sources of monounsaturated fats: olive oil or olives and olive oil, almonds, avocado and avocado oil, Brazil nuts, and eggs. Sources of saturated fats, we kind of know this one really good: palm oil, coconut oil, butter, raw dairy, grass-fed animal fats, and eggs. Sources of essential omega-6 fatty acids, which are polyunsaturated fats: sunflower oil, sesame oil, sunflower oil, black currant seed, poultry, and guess what? Eggs. Sources of essential omega-3 fatty acids, which are also polyunsaturated fats, are fish oil, walnuts, pine nuts, pistachios, pumpkin seeds, and eggs. You notice that all 3 of these, or all these types of fats, the egg is a good source of all of these. So that's why they call the egg nature's perfect food, because it's got all these incredible nutrients in there. The next thing that I want to talk about is minerals, and we don't hear a lot about vitamins and minerals in the ketogenic diet or anywhere really. So I want to kind of go through some of the uses of these minerals, and the big one, the first one, is electrolytes, which include sodium, magnesium, potassium, chloride, and calcium. These help with preventing muscle cramps, fatigue, and headaches. So if you have the fatigue, muscle cramps, and headaches, try some electrolytes and see. And there are some good ones out there that you can order online. Jimmy and I use a couple of them, and I had to use some this morning because of some leg cramps, and they work really good. These electrolytes help transport nutrients across cell walls when they're properly hydrated. Hydration is important. So all this stuff that I'm talking about is interconnected. If one thing is off, then you're going to struggle in other areas. So they also maintain proper nerve conduction and assist in muscle contraction and relaxation. Calcium is responsible for muscle contraction and relaxation, but it's the magnesium that makes the calcium work. So if you don't have enough magnesium, then you might experience heart palpitations. So that's a classic sign of magnesium deficiency. So that's a big thing that I learned. I thought it was just, okay, just potassium, whatever. But no, you need the calcium too, and the magnesium that makes it work. And something of interest here, low adrenal function can actually lead to electrolyte imbalances. So your adrenal glands produce something called aldosterone, which is responsible for controlling the amount of sodium that you dump from the body. So if you have adrenal fatigue, then you might struggle with dumping salt, and you might have more problems with electrolyte imbalances. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in the body, and this helps with a process called bone remodeling. Your blood pH should be 7.35 to 7.45. If it gets lower than that, it becomes more acidic, and so calcium is taken out of the bone and put into the blood to kind of raise the pH. And the exact opposite happens if the blood pH gets too high, meaning more alkaline, then the calcium is put back into the bone to kind of lower that pH. And one thing that's really important is to have K2, because K2 is also known as activator X. This kind of tells calcium where it needs to go. So you have people that have osteoporosis but yet bone spurs at the same time. This is because they're deficient in K2. And I've seen my parents struggle with this as well. Oops, went the wrong way. So zinc is the next one. Zinc is very important, as I said before, that it helps with stomach acid production. It is necessary for a healthy immune system, and it helps with wound healing. And a big one is the replication of DNA. So if you're zinc deficient, this is a really important one. And there's a simple way to test if you're zinc deficient. There's a aqueous zinc solution that you can get online, and you take a teaspoon of it, and if it tastes like water, you keep it in your mouth for 30 seconds, don't swallow it. And if it tastes like water, then you're deficient in zinc. So, but if you taste an unpleasant taste right away, then you know that your zinc status is pretty good, and you probably don't need to supplement with zinc. Magnesium is another one. As I said before, magnesium is what makes the calcium work. A major sign of magnesium deficiency is heart palpitations. Phosphorus is the second most abundant mineral in the body. It promotes healthy bones, nerve function, muscle contraction, and is a big part of the structure of DNA and cell membranes. The last thing that's not kind of talked about a lot, and I know that when some people see detoxification, they kind of roll their eyes and like, yeah, right, that's what, you think of the shakes and the green drinks and all that sort of stuff. That's a part of it, but actually detoxification is very important for our bodies. It's always going on, but especially when we're sleeping. So detoxification is a parasympathetic state, and when we're sleeping, hopefully we're in a parasympathetic state. And this is why that I believe that it's not good to eat too close to going to bed, because if we're having to work on digesting our food, the body will prioritize digesting the food over detoxification. And detoxification is when our body heals and repairs itself. So it's a very important aspect that's not really talked about a lot. Every aspect of the body has to be working well in order to detoxify. So diet. If you have a diet that's high in processed food, these foods are seen as toxic to the body. It's lifeless food, so the body can't deal with it. And then digestion. So if you're not digesting properly, then it's just going to mess things up. Blood sugar regulation. If your blood sugar is off, there are certain minerals and vitamins that are needed for the detoxification process to happen, and blood sugar imbalances can deplete the body of these minerals that are needed. Fatty acid intake. So fats are very important for for the flow of the bile. So you need fats for the liver and gallbladder. The bile is where the toxins are taken out of the body. A fun fact, and I didn't know this until recently, that you look at the color of your pee and it's yellow because of the bile in there. So I just thought that was really interesting. Minerals, like I said, there are certain minerals that are needed for the detoxification process to work right. Hydration, again, hydration keeps those bodily fluids moving, the bile moving, so it can exit from the body. And it's just incredible. If any one thing gets off in your body, then that can affect the detoxification process. And there are many factors like pollution, cellular waste, any number of things, chemicals that we use in our house every day, shampoos, even some of these. I guess I don't know what they're generically called, so I'll just say it. The Scentsy wax stuff that you burn, I mean, that your body takes that in, and if you have existing problems, it can just make things worse. So in our house, we try to use the essential oils because I do have thyroid problems, and so my body is just really sensitive to any type of chemical. There are 2 phases of detoxification. You have phase 1 detoxification, and this is where they require the vitamins B2, B3, magnesium, and an enzyme called cytochrome P450. The adrenal glands is what produces this. So if you have adrenal fatigue, you're most likely going to have problems with the detoxification process. Phase 2 detoxification depends on cysteine, glutathione, sulfate, and glycine. If phase 1 detoxification is clogged or impaired, then obviously phase 2 is going to be as well. So that's basically those major points that I wanted to talk about. Again, our book comes out actually November 6th. It's available on Amazon, and you can listen to our Nutritional Pearls podcast where we kind of go into greater detail about all these things. I had to kind of zip through it today, but I'm a Star Trek fan, so I want you to live long and prosper, so thank you so much. Oh, yeah, that's right. Does anybody have any questions? Plexus, I'm okay with it. I mean, it has its place, but a lot of these companies just focus on the shakes and they don't look at other aspects of what's going on in the body. Is the person drinking enough? Are they getting enough fatty acid intake? Because there's so much more than just drinking a shake or things like that. The whole body has to be included and looked at. So it has its place. So I'm okay with it. I just don't think that should be the only thing that's looked at. Yeah. Anybody else? That means I explained it pretty well. Yes. K2, that's a good question, Jimmy. You might want to, can you help me with this one, K2? What are good sources of K2? Like probably any animal organ meats. Yeah, any organ meat, you can get a good supplement or a good quantity in there. So your animal meats are your complete source of protein, and they have your fats in there. If you get the fattier cuts of meat, they have good sources of fat. So if the animal is grass-fed, then the grass, they get the K2 from the grass, and so that try to, if you can, get the grass-fed meats, which are going to be better quality. So yeah, definitely. Thank you, Jimmy. Animal meats. No.
I have a question, ma'am.
Yeah.
So if 9 out of 10 people have low stomach acid, why is that? Is there something in our habits that we're doing, something in the environment that's making the stomach acid be low, or what?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, stomach acid, you need zinc and B6 to help produce that. So if you're deficient in those vitamins and minerals, your stomach acid is going to be impaired. Things like alcohol. I can't handle alcohol well, but some people like alcohol, and in reality, that kind of shrinks the production of hydrochloric acid. So if you drink that diet sodas or any type of soda, it kind of interferes with that. It changes the acidity of the stomach. So stress can inhibit stomach acid production, any number of things.
Is that a modern thing, I guess? Did our ancestors deal with this issue? What is it about what they did that we're not doing anymore?
So our ancestors ate a diet that was well balanced. It was high in the fats, and so it had lots of minerals, lots of vitamins. Their stress was different. We're under constant stress, and so stress depletes the body of these vitamins and minerals. So yes, they still had stress, but it was like, okay, a tiger's, chasing after me, gotta run, and then, okay, the stress is gone. But in today's society, our body kind of views everything as stress, our work, lifestyle. We were exposed to so many chemicals, and that's stressful on the body. So in reality, our stress levels are way up here, and that's kind of contributing to the lack of stomach acid production. And a lot of people, the food sources today, it's very hard to get your food sources that are good in nutrients because the soil is depleted of these micronutrients. And so that's our food sources aren't good. So most of us have to supplement. I need to supplement with zinc. I need to supplement with vitamin D things, and that's okay. Some people don't believe in that, but I think in today's society, it's necessary. And then you can actually go to your doctor and ask for what's called the what's it called? It's the pH test. I can't think of the name of it offhand, but you basically swallow a pill, and it sends a signal to your doctor that measures the pH of your stomach. And so he'll know what you're talking about. There are the 90% thing that two doctors that came up with this was Jonathan Wright. He was a medical doctor, and he used this test to determine the 90%. And then there was another one, George Goodhart. He was a chiropractor, and he used functional evaluation and applied kinesiology he came to that same conclusion, that 90% people were not producing enough stomach acid. Hope that helps. Yeah.
Can you talk briefly about the timing of the supplements when you take them? For instance,
Yeah.
vitamin D might keep you up, and then also vitamins that maybe one blocks the other from being absorbed.
Yeah, I'm still learning a lot about how these vitamins and minerals interact, but yes, the magnesium we tend to take at night because it does help us sleep. And let's see, I'm trying to think of what I take. I take fish oil. Most of them I have to take them with food because I don't produce enough stomach acid. So if you don't produce enough stomach acid, then taking vitamins on an empty stomach can make you nauseous and actually throw them up. So let's see, what else do I take? I take methylated folate because I have the MTHFR gene mutation from both sides of my family. My body can't turn folic acid into folate. So I have to take the methylated folate, which my body can handle. I take, a good D3. So I usually take that with one of my earlier meals. Really the only one that I take at night separately is magnesium. The rest of them I kind of really take together. I take some digestive enzymes, which help with, because I'm deficient in stomach acid. I usually take one of those, one per meal. What else do I take? What else do we take, Jimmy? Everything, yeah. So, but yeah, you're exactly right. Some of them will, like there are certain B vitamins that keep you up. The B1, B4, B6, and B12, if I remember right, are ones for people that have a lack of energy that need a boost, and so you would take those. If you tend to be strung out, really hyper, tensed-up, you need to take the B2. There's choline. There's several other ones, folic acid or folate. Those ones you would want to take if you tend to be kind of up all the time and you need to kind of be relaxed. So I hope that answered the question a little bit. Yes?
What type of electrolyte product do you guys prefer?
So there's two of them. The one I used this morning is a powder, and they come in little packs. It's from Jigsaw Health, and it's like a lemon lime flavor, and you just pour it in your water bottle, mix it up, and you drink it that way. There's also another one called Ketovangelists, I believe, and it's a capsule. You can get those on Amazon. Both of these you can get on Amazon. I tend to like the powder. I mean, I could break open the capsule and pour it in my water. I just like the lemon lime flavor of the Jigsaw, and they use really good quality ingredients, and the Jigsaw Health also includes some of the B vitamins and other things in there, so it's really comprehensive as far as getting the micronutrients that you need. And I just take one serving of that, and almost right away my body knows that it's getting what it needs, and so the cramps stop. Yeah. Anybody else? Awesome. Thank you.